All right, this is exciting. We're sitting here in the lab. Sarah and Nick are here, and this is a big moment for Mountain Tough. And we know a lot of you guys love to check out these in-depth videos for more details on programs, for the program breakdowns, for the information and the progressions and how we structured it. So Postseason 2.0 is what we're diving into today. And this is really cool for Mountain Tough history because the last version of postseason that our athletes saw is a 5-year-old program. So it was launched in 2019. It still is used and utilized over and over again by Mountain Toughers, but it had been a while since we had revamped and rebuilt that program. And of course, in human performance, you learn a tremendous amount in 5 years. So it's a little bit late. So we are super excited to get it out. We wanted to revamp preseason first. So preseason 2.0 came out last year, and that was huge for the Mountain Tough community to dive into a new preseason training program. And now we have postseason. So breaking down postseason 2.0 today, it's been several years in the making, and we talk about that a lot at Mountain Tough, that we're not always focused on making this program for the last 5 years, but we are learning things every single day that have been incorporated into this program from a human performance standpoint. So this one is going to be a game changer. Remember, postseason is the training cycle we like to see hunters go on in the off season. It's also going to be a phenomenal program for someone who's a non-hunter. So it is built for hunters in the off season, 16 weeks. So most hunters are going to dive into that program in November, December, January, Feb, depending on when you wrap up your hunting season. That might be December, January, February, March. But we want you to pack on a lot of strength once in the year. Even as a non-hunter, taking a block to just focus on strength once a year is a game changer, so that we can always bring that baseline up. We can make sure that we're maintaining muscle mass when there's a lot of cardio going on in the summer. A lot of that muscle mass can go away. With running and ultra running, hunting is the same. So a strength block is critical. So hunters and non-hunters, this is for you. We've been working hard on this, and Sarah, Nick, and I have all gone through it, and we're feeling incredible. The big thing we talk about in the lab is not only are we feeling incredible from a strength perspective, our weights and our baseline has gone up across the board, lower body and upper body. But the big thing we've noticed is how healthy we feel. So traditionally, going through a phase like this, your shoulders might feel banged up or your lower back might feel banged up. The huge thing from postseason 2.0 is we're not really feeling that at all, because we've kind of redesigned how we're going to take that load off your spine, and we've redesigned how we're going to keep your shoulders super healthy. So all the testing cohort groups have felt extremely good. We're feeling extremely good. So we're super excited to bring this out to the Mountain Tough community. We'll break down the phases and kind of how it goes. So Sarah, let's start with you on phase 1. This is a on-ramp to get people ready.
Right. So what we've done is we've programmed kind of a ramp-up week. When you first get back into the gym, you know, you're kind of like, oh man, I haven't lifted any weight in a while. You just want to go through the range of motion. So what we've done is we've designed just a week just to go through our bread and butter movements, basic mechanics, kind of get the joints moving again after that repetitive pattern of being in the mountains day after day. So we have 1 week just to kind of work out the kinks, like work out the spider webs, all that stuff. And then we dive into phase 1, which is going to last 4 weeks. So we have our ramp up and then a 4-week phase. So that first 4 weeks, we made the conscious decision to focus on dumbbells, bands, and body weight, right? So you're going to see very, very minimal barbell work in the first 4 weeks. That was very purposeful. So we want to reestablish good stabilization. We want to reestablish good range of motion. We want to address any asymmetries. We set a lot of intention with that 4 weeks. We also kind of threw in some good conditioning days just to kind of provide a little wake-up call once a week of like, how is your conditioning doing? You might feel pretty sore that first phase, but that's okay. We've allowed for that as you kind of travel through the week. And then the end of the week actually ends with a good upper body focus day so that your legs can kind of recover over the weekend. And then we go back and hit it hard the next week. Yeah, it's really exciting. And then phase 2 is where we really start to dive into those big compound movements that you're going to see us progress strength-wise for the next 9 weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that first week, that 1 week kind of introducing you back to some strength training, what are mountain toughers going to see in that week that's going to keep them healthy?
You guys are going to see a lot of what we call prehab movements. So a lot of shoulder health movements, a lot of things to address rotator cuff. You're going to see rotator cuff health. You're going to see, once again, good hinge patterns. Make sure taking that load off the lower back a little bit. We're going to do a lot of glute activation. Actually, barbell hip thrusts are one of the only barbell movements that we are starting from square one just to get those glutes kind of fired up right from the start. As far as prehab, we're focused on a lot of great core, just a lot of those movements that we all talk about doing all the time that we kind of throw on the end of a workout. We've really programmed them into like the meat of each workout. So I'm really excited about it. There's built-in mobility in almost everything we do. We've even designated a midweek, what we call primal day, to just like go back to our basic like movement patterns, our coordination and things like that. Can our shoulders stabilize us at a slightly different angle than just a basic overhead press? So it's kind of a fun approach to it. Just get moving again.
Yeah,
Cool.
I mean, the first 5 weeks, I think our intention is if you're a hunter and you've just had a tough season, or if you're somebody that just likes going to the gym, everybody's going to get a lot out of that, and you're going to feel really good after 5 weeks. You're going to learn the basic movement patterns that you're going to see, and we're going to load heavier throughout the rest of the program. And we start with dumbbells just because it, again, is going to build that stability. It's a little bit more approachable for some of those people that aren't used to those bigger compound movements. And I think after that 5 weeks, you're going to be ready for a change. And we were all ready for that, but feeling good and feeling like we had a really strong base to take into that larger 9-week period.
Yeah,
For sure. And Nick, most mountain toughers know this, but not all of them. But you're also a physical therapist in addition to being a mountain tough coach. And a big decision we decided to make on Postseason 2.0 was the removal of a traditional back squat out of the program. Can you talk a little bit about the pros and cons and kind of why we made that decision?
Yeah, so I think ultimately we just kind of looked at it from a risk reward standpoint. Like a lot of people working out at home, having that load through their spine, especially if they've been hunting all season, carrying weight already, like is the risk reward, can we get the same benefit from doing other movements if we take that back squat out? And we ultimately made that decision to go forward with that. So we're still going to have a deadlift, we're still going to have heavy hip thrusts, we're still going to be loading your legs. But for example, when we were testing these workouts, one of the days that has a hip thrust, we've got heavy step ups. Like you're not going to miss that back squat. And we're going to still have plenty of squatting movements. We've got plenty of goblet squats and squatting variations that are still going to hit that movement pattern, but are just going to be able to keep you a little bit healthier as we progress through the program.
Awesome. Yeah, and it definitely has been a game changer in terms of taking that load off the spine and everyone feeling incredible in their low back and their upper back.
Definitely.
And then Sarah, you mentioned the primal day, and we were joking this morning because my favorite part of the primal day definitely is the Turkish get up, which has been cool. But when we designed the primal day concept, a big part of that was we don't want to go through a strength block and lose all our athleticism, which is common in a lot of old school strength training. So old school strength training, whether it's a lot of 5x5s or like your German volume training is going to be 10x10s. You're losing most accessory work, and you're also losing a lot of athleticism. And in this program, there is still a tremendous amount of things going on that keeps someone as a highly functional athlete, even though they're getting really strong. And a big part of that is the primal day and the Turkish get-ups, but it's throughout the program as well.
It definitely is throughout the program. And I think that that's what distinguishes a Mountain Tough strength program from just your traditional pure strength is like, we want you to get strong, but we want you to be the most athletic person you can be top to bottom. So, so what we've done is we've chosen, like Coach Nick just said, like we've chosen lower risk, higher reward movements that we know in the lab have been able to get us strong without beating us up too much. And then throwing in that accessory work, right? So every strength day, you're going to see two, maximum 3 compound movements that we're focusing on progressing strength-wise. And then the rest of the workout is doing all of those things that we usually don't put a lot of gravity in, that make the biggest difference when it comes to longevity and staying feeling good to hit those bigger lifts and those the higher loads, right? And what's also really unique about phase 2 is we're progressing an overhead military press. So we're progressing a military press versus a traditional bench press.
Yep.
So I think it was a big move to not program in a barbell bench press, but we have all agreed that our shoulders have never felt better in that overhead press movement. It's because of not the military press day. It's because of everything else we're doing, all of the cable work, and things like that. But yeah, that Wednesday primal day, just focusing on the body moving as a cohesive unit in maybe movement patterns that you haven't done before or haven't been guided to do before in a strength program. And we definitely push the volume a little bit because we encourage you to, 5 days a week, hour-long workouts. You might feel a little beat up, but all of a sudden you're going to start recovering a little bit better because of those primal days. And the recovery almost sneaks up on you. You're surprised you feel so good the next day for your heavy Bulgarian split squat. And it's good. It's been highly successful so far. And those primal days are changing every single week. So we get to really explore, some different combinations, hip mobility, Turkish variations.
And I think a lot of the test athletes have really enjoyed those Wednesdays because it's just so different from a standard strength day. Like we might be doing some bear crawls, some Turkish get-up variations. We're doing a lot of carrying, so spending kind of time on your hands, moving to different ways that you typically wouldn't. So yeah, it's just hitting a lot of those areas where that almost kind of turns into from I look at it from a prehab standpoint, because we're working a lot of those different angles and different kind of accessory movements that you don't see, kind of getting outside of that normal forward back plane of motion and kind of getting in some rotations. Like again, like spending time on your hands, I think is super helpful for getting your shoulder stronger too. And I mean, how often do people crawl on their hands as an adult? Like we don't do it that often. So those have been really fun. I think everybody's feeling really strong from the Turkish get up progression as well. So those have been really fun.
Yeah, a big thing I've noticed is if we look at postseason 1.0, now it is funny with how much we've learned in the last 5 years. Postseason 1.0 is incredibly helpful to a lot of mountain toughers, but the one thing that we were running into with that program is you do get into some overtraining and some like adrenal fatigue type issues. So because of how the program is structured, it was a phenomenal program in 2019, but we have learned a lot. And one of the issues it was causing was like that adrenal fatigue is going to lead to irritability and grouchiness and high resting heart rate. And part of that was in the old design, you did have 2 conditioning days and you did have some massive rucks in the old postseason. And fast forwarding to now, everything we've learned is the rucks don't really need to be in a postseason program because rucking is much more beneficial as you're preparing for your season or your expedition. So that will transfer to the spring and the summer. and taking that ruck off your back in the winter will also make your spine feel better. So that was a big game changer, is pulling those rucks out. And then going from 2 conditioning days to 1 has been a huge shift in people feeling that feeling of being overtrained versus not overtrained. So as a strength program, as Mountain Tough, we did have to keep 1 conditioning day because we still want you to be ready for anything. We want that always ready mentality. Even though you're packing on strength, you still have to maintain that cardio and that stamina and that endurance and that mental toughness. And this program is super unique because you're going to see so many incredible conditioning days. Traditionally, what you see in preseason, original postseason, spring, in most of our programming, you're going to see the conditioning day repeated 2 weeks in a row, or you're going to see it repeated every other week. So that is the mentality of you're going to get crushed by it the first time, and then you're going to have a chance to improve the second time. In postseason 2.0, it's all new conditioning days. A lot of those are going to be Tuesdays, and you get a lot of different chances to try some pretty insane mental toughness, hit cardio, stamina, endurance type workouts throughout the program. The variety and the uniqueness of those conditioning days is pretty cool.
Yeah. And what we did, so we kept the conditioning Tuesdays in phase 1, but then in phase 2, what we did is we tacked it on to the last day of the week. So it's kind of one of those mental toughness. You're tired from a big week of lifting, but you just have to grind it out. And it feels, it's awesome to end the week that way. We've chosen relatively lower impact movements in these conditioning workouts so that it's going to be challenging. It's going to get you in those higher zones in your heart rate, but you're not going to just feel like a zombie the next day. Now, right after you might, but the next day you're almost going to feel, better than you would if we just crushed you in a hard lift on a Friday. So, and you're going to see that conditioning progress. So in phase 2, what we've done is we've broken down 9 weeks into 3 3-week phases. And so there are these very strategic, deliberate shifts every 3 weeks, not just in your big compound lifts, but also in each conditioning session too. So as you start to lift more weight, we reduce that intensity, or we reduce kind of the experience of the conditioning. So it's always going to be tough, right? But there's different ways. There's grinding workouts. There's that zone 5 where you're just, you just are in the spirit world. There's also like very strategic interval training where you have designated rest and you're getting pushed, into those higher heart rate zones and then coming down. So you're going to see that flow throughout those 9 weeks. And at the end of it, that's what we keep mentioning is you're like, man, I feel better than I thought I would feel with performing this much work, on a weekly basis.
I think the nice thing about that too is as your strength is going up, then those hard days, I wouldn't say feel easier, but you're able to do more work. So you can get more done without really hitting that zone 5. Yeah. But they have felt really good because we start off early with those, standard Mountain Tough, like you got to do everything you can to finish this workout. And then as we progress to strength and those days get harder, then those days don't get a lot easier. The stimulus is just a little bit different. So maybe instead of like hitting that zone 5, it's going to be a steady grind, or you will have a little bit of rest built in there. So we're balancing that a little bit. Doesn't make it easy.
Yeah, none of us are going to say the word easy when it comes to conditioning. We're like,
different style.
It just gets different, but it's all part of a bigger plan. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few in that first phase 2 block A that you
want to do one time.
Yeah. One time is enough.
One time.
And Nick, what do you think about like beginners going through this program compared to elites?
That's a good question. So, I think a lot of people look at certain programs like this and they might think that this is too much for them, but I think we've scaled all the movements to really anybody can get into this. Like if you're a new person approaching these lifts, We're going to ramp you up in a way that you're going to be ready for those heavier compound movements. But if you're someone that is experienced in this and you're ready to go, you're still going to get a hard, challenging workout. Because even starting in that first 5-week phase with just the dumbbells, like all of us were experiencing, that was not an easy phase. Like you can go heavy on those. The volume's still going to be pretty high. You're going to be feeling pretty good. And then getting into the barbells, we're going to get right to it. So I think it's really approachable for everybody, especially how we structure the movements and the ramp up to that. And then, like Sarah mentioned earlier, I think we have a lot of good sort of accessory prehab work built in there that doesn't feel like that to kind of keep you healthy. Like she said, a lot of the stuff that typically we should be doing, but we don't, it's in there for you. So I think it's a very approachable program for all levels of fitness. And we've been very intentional even on the conditioning days of putting different options for people. So, we've got elite, intermediate, beginner options. So you can start where you're at on those days. And then the nice challenge about that is as your fitness improves, you can try to shoot to hit to that next level. Because those elite standards we have are going to be tough for most people to hit. So I think everybody's going to have kind of a goal to work up through this program.
Yeah, I agree. And the PDFs are going to recommend all the weights that we're looking forward to for beginners, intermediate, and elites. You have a warm up for every day, for every phase, and a cool down for every day, for every phase, coached by Sarah. So a comprehensive program includes everything from top to bottom. And then Sarah, this will be a robust home gym or full gym program, correct?
Yes, it's going to require a full gym. So this is most easily going to be performed in a commercial gym where you have access to cables, a sled, med balls, a variety of kettlebells, obviously dumbbells, bands, everything like that. We write a full gym program in the most ideal way possible to perform it. And I think that's important to note that if you are limited in your access to equipment, we're always open to helping you troubleshoot how to perform the program, whether it's performing things in different sequences. We're very blessed here at the lab. We have a big gym that we can experiment with different circuits and things like that. That's not always doable in a commercial gym when it's crowded. So we try to facilitate still being able to do the program, even if it's not exactly the way that we prescribe it in the program. So if you are one of those people that has a robust home gym and really wants to do this postseason, we always encourage people to reach out and we can, hold your hand through that process if you need. So because as long as you're getting your big basic lifts, getting everything in, you're still going to reap so many of the benefits of the program. Yeah, I think that's important to note.
I think it's important for people to know also that they're going to need that sled.
Yep.
Sled is utilized. And then you should talk a little bit about hip thrust.
Yes.
And what's going on there.
I know. It's, I think that the hip thrust, I feel like has finally come into its own. All right. So, you saw, 8 to 10 years ago, or even 5 to 7 years ago, hip thrusts were just something that female bodybuilders did, right? But my experience as a trainer for almost 2 decades, hip thrusts have been one of the most powerful and effective exercises to reduce lower back pain, to strengthen the posterior chain, and doing those things without the inherent risk. I think that is the magical ingredient is how can we get really, really strong in those prime movers, right? Your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads. How can we thrust 400-500 pounds with essentially no really big risk involved? And it translates, there's no question about this, it translates to the heavy lunges, heavy Bulgarians, and heavy deadlifts, all right? And so what we've done is we are seeing how far we can take it, right? So this is going to be unique for a lot of people out there experiencing or hitting postseason strength. We're taking hip thrusts and we're treating them as a strength progression, just like we would a deadlift. And the results just are there. The proof is there that, every athlete that we've put through this postseason that has struggled with lower back pain, they're like, man, I woke up this morning and it's like, I thought I was going to be so sore and my back just feels really good. And that's what's happening. And so people are warming up to the idea of really doing hip thrusts consistently. And Nick, as a PT, I mean, you walk into any PT office and anybody with a lower extremity injury is more than likely doing band walks, hip bridges, things to activate and strengthen their glutes, right?
For sure.
And so what if we just took that and treated it as a bread and butter strength movement? Well, we did. And I think even though it might feel awkward at first, it's a movement you have to get used to. It's, people kind of are like, oh, the setup, it's worth it. Like, just put it that way. Like, it's worth it to get strong in that movement. And I will defend that to the death.
It's been cool because I'd never done a huge cycle of them, but it is incredible how good you start feeling. And you are right. We've seen, females over 400 and guys over 500 pounds now on their hip thrust and no issues, strong glutes. And across like the lab testing group, physically we saw, a lot of guys get pretty jacked. So like Drew got pretty jacked, Nate got pretty jacked. And that is, counterintuitive to like a strength bulking program. And it's because we're encompassing the conditioning and the athleticism. Not only are you going to add a tremendous amount of strength, but your body type is going to change. Gus lost a tremendous amount of weight.
Right.
Eric yesterday said like he's never felt better trail running than he has on this program because like his knee, ankle, and hip feels so aligned. So a pretty incredible like hybrid athlete, functional athlete, strength phase.
Yeah, I think that was one of the unintended kind of things that we accomplished is getting you stronger without really putting on a ton of size. Because I think a lot of mountain athletes, hunters, like they don't really want to get a lot bigger. Like they're probably fine where they're at. So like being able to get really strong and maybe even a little bit leaner and still move fast, like that's a goal that probably everybody wants. And I don't think we really set out to accomplish that during this, but it was sort of like a unintended secondary benefit from it.
Yeah, it's incredible. And Nick, what is the benefit we're getting out of that Turkish get up?
Yeah, the Turkish get up. So that's a movement that a lot of people have probably heard of. Maybe they've seen it, but a lot of people probably haven't actually done it or done a cycle through that. So one of the big things, and I'll use this with PT clients, is the Turkish get up for shoulder stability. It's probably one of the best things. But the other thing is a lot of core strength, especially as we've been getting heavy in those Turkish get-ups. You can feel your core. You got to use it a lot just to even get up to that first starting position. So it works a lot on shoulder stability, a lot on core strength, a lot on coordination. And then it's really just working everything. Like you guys know, like when you stand up from that windmill position, we're working a lot on the back, especially kind of loading that QL kind of lateral hip area in a way that we don't typically see in a lot of strength programs. So we thought the Turkish get-up was an important movement, again, for mountain athletes that just want to stay generally healthy. We know shoulder issues are a big thing for a lot of us, especially like bow hunters. So how can we load that, challenge that stability, again, without adding a lot of weight to it? So the unique part of that movement is you have to keep that kettlebell stable. It's not just a press. So it's really fighting to build that stability, and it forces all those muscles around the shoulder blade to engage and really work in ways that they're not really used to doing. And I think we were really intentional with the Turkish get-up instead of just, first day, like throw it at you, load it up. We have a progression for that as well. So we've broken down the parts of that Turkish get-up, and we've slowly built that up to kind of that last 3-week phase where we're doing heavy Turkish get-ups. And I think people are feeling really good with our windmills, with our Turkish sit-ups, and all those different variations that build us up there. And that's been a fun one to see people progress in, because I think when we first started that, people are like, what is this movement? Like, how do we do this? And now people that had never done that before are doing it with pretty heavy weight.
I think the Turkish get-up has always been one of those elusive exercises that you've always heard about, but you're like, it doesn't look that hard when you like see somebody else do it. But you're like, well, I'm not going to go to my commercial gym and try to do a Turkish get-up because there's all these steps and everything. And so that's what's really exciting is, I mean, me included, I've never given attention to progressing a Turkish get-up. And it's been fun to break it down and build up and just put that in, like, put that in your repertoire of like, all right, this was really cool to build up this strength and this coordination that I've never really challenged in that way before. But so for me personally, I've enjoyed like getting to that point, you know.
And you
even
feel
though-
soreness in areas that you're not used to feeling.
like under your rib cage, and you kind of get unstuck. That's what I always kind of talk about the Turkish get up, feeling really good on the system, because it kind of gets that rib cage moving and all those like thoracic, QL, your hips moving in a very different way that you're like, man, this is like, I need this every morning, you know, after you wake up. And so it's been fun.
Those have been awesome. And it is cool how healthy this program is keeping everyone's back. And a lot of mountain toughers have heard me talk about like my back issues. I have the bulge disc on my L5 S1. And so if I'm not careful, like I can knock that thing completely out multiple times a year. I've done it through training, and like my back has never felt better on this program. Certainly, like this is my favorite program we've ever gone through in Mountain Tough. We're always thinking about like what's that holy grail program? What's that program that literally has every single thing in it? And this is definitely as close as we've ever gotten to that. There's not anything that's not included in here for a mountain tougher that is going to leave you feeling extremely well mentally and physically. It's as close to the holy grail program as we've ever done. And I think a lot about this one. Like all military athletes should definitely take a look at this program. It's perfect for that, in addition to the hunters. But that military LEO community is going to get a tremendous amount of value out of this as well, with these functional movements like the Turkish get up, like you're in the primal day. It's going to make you, very nimble regardless of your profession. So great for hunters, great for military athletes, great for anyone that just wants to add a tremendous amount of strength and functionality. But closing thoughts, I think we should close it down and let people dive into the program.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a recap, guys, we definitely give you that ramp up week. Phase 1, 4 weeks, dumbbells, body weight bands, okay, getting you back moving well. Phase 2 is going to be 9 weeks, 3-week blocks that you're going to see those accessory movements change every 3 weeks. But what the staples that you'll see all throughout that 9 weeks are the deadlift, the military, weighted dips. We're going to be doing
Weighted
pull-ups, barbell hip thrust. We're really pushing it with some dumbbell, limited range of motion step-ups, Bulgarian split squats, and then a designated primal day, designated conditioning day. In these last 2 weeks of the program, because this is a full 16-week program, we are taking that strength and we are going to have some fun with it. So we're going to experiment with some fun functional lifts. And of course, there will be conditioning. But so those last 2 weeks, we really get to kind of like, have some fun, see how much weight we can push around in a safe kind of functional setting. And so it's really exciting, 2 weeks to kind of lead you into that spring training.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
That was a great recap. I mean, I think the biggest thing on this one is we've spent a lot of time in this program, testing it out, going back, tweaking things, making sure it feels good, making sure the progressions are where we want, everybody's getting the results that we want. So it's nice to put the stamp on this one, as like we're just proud of what it's become and where we've been with this one. So we're really excited. I think it's going to get people feeling super strong, really athletic, and really healthy by the end of it.
For sure. Well, thanks, Mountain Tough. Dive in there, check it out. If you don't have a subscription yet, you can get into those first 2 weeks on the free trial. So 14-day free trial. Just grab the app at mountaintough.com or in the App Store. And just, if you're not sure, just go through the first 2 weeks. So you can go through the first 2 weeks on that free trial, no costs associated, and just get through week 2 and see what you think. We know that you're going to love it at that point, and it's going to be a game changer for you. So thanks for being here. Any questions you have on the program or any questions at all, just email support@mountaintough.com.
Stay dangerous.
Don't die.
Don't die.